Land ownership question. Let's begin the solution by first understanding the meaning of this sentence. Formalized 300 years after Akbar first introduced the concept of land ownership in the last decade, Zamindari Hatao law led to the real estate boom and increased the wealth of an average Indian by 20%, giving the overall economy a shot in the arm. So this sentence appears to be talking about this Zamindari Hatao law. It appears to be providing a few facts about it. So first it talks about when this law was implemented or when this law was formalized. So it provides a information with respect to when Akbar first introduced the concept of land ownership. So after 300 years after that happened, this Zamindari Hata law was formalized. And then it also we can infer that this last decade here talks about the timing of when this law was formalized. So this law was formalized last decade, and by the way, this last decade was 300 years after Akbar first introduced the concept of land ownership. Now, as we will see in our next step, in the last decade, the positioning of this is not correct, and that is the error in this sentence. But again, at this stage, we're just trying to infer what the meaning of the sentence is, and logically, this last decade appears to talk about the timing of when this law was formalized. Now, this sentence then also tells us something else as to what this law led to. So what this law actually led to was two different things. One was that it led to the real estate boom, and then it also led to the increase in the wealth of average Indian by 20%. And these two things together gave the overall economy a shot in the arm. So these two impacts together led further to give overall economy a shot in the arm. So this sentence appears to convey the meaning appropriately, although we had to infer what the role of this in the last decade is. But other than that, the sentence appears to communicate its meaning appropriately. So now we'll move over to analyzing the errors in this sentence. So as usual, we'll first split the sentence into its individual clauses, and that makes our analysis easier. So formalized 300 years after Akbar first introduced. So we have our first subject verb pair here. First introduced the concept of land ownership in the last decade, comma, Zamindari Hatao law led. Okay, so I have a comma and then I have another subject verb pair here. So law led. So this means this is my next clause, led to the real estate boom and increased. Okay, there's another verb here and it's connected to the first verb using the word and, so it appears to be okay. And increase the wealth of an average Indian by 20%, comma, giving the overall economy a shot in the arm. Okay, so this sentence, all the subject verb pairs are accounted for. So we have two subject verb pairs in the two clauses. There are no pronouns here, so we don't need to worry about it. Both the subject verb pairs, both the verbs are in past tense, and that makes sense. And again, even though Akbar first introduced the concept, this thing happened 300 years before this next event led. This next event led. We don't necessarily need to use past perfect tense because here the sequencing is very clear with the use of the word after, so we don't really need to use any other tense to clarify this sequencing. So verb tenses are fine. There is this modifier here giving the overall economy a shot in the arm, and this modifier appears to provide the result of the action in the second clause, and that makes perfect sense. It's providing the result of these two actions. Now let's come to formalize 300 years after. So this is a verb ed modifier, and that's modifying Zamindari Hatao law. That makes complete sense. Now, as we were discussing in the meaning analysis, in the last decade, this is the problematic area. We do not, it appears from this sentence that it modifies when Akbar first introduced the concept of land ownership, and that doesn't make sense. See, Akbar introduced the concept of land ownership 300 years back, And to say that Akbar did this in the last decade, I mean, those two pieces of data are contradictory. 300 years back is not in the last decade. So logically, in the last decade should modify this time. The timing should basically provide information about when this Zamindari Hatao law was formalized. So that is the error in this sentence, and other than that, the sentence appears to be grammatically fine. So we just need to correct this modifier error and then make sure that the correct answer choice doesn't have any other errors introduced. Okay, so now we'll move over to our answer choice analysis. So choice A has a modifier error as discussed. In the last decade, illogically modifies when Akbar introduced the concept, and that's not correct. Let's read choice B. Formalized in the last decade. Okay, so now we have placed in the last decade right next to formalized, and that makes complete sense. That's what we wanted to do. Now let's check if this answer choice has some other errors or not. Formalized in the last decade, 300 years after Akbar first introduced the concept of land ownership. Okay, this is also fine. 300 years after now provides additional information about when this thing was formalized. So these two modifiers together basically provides a timing information about Zamindari Hatao law. So Zamindari Hatao law led to the real estate boom and increased the wealth of an average Indian by 20%, giving the overall economy a shot in the arm. So this sentence, the way it's written, it appears to be absolutely correct without any error. So this could very well be our correct answer choice. But before we mark this as the correct one, let's review the other choices as well. Giving the overall economy a shot in the arm. Okay, so right off the bat, this sentence is starting with a modifier that actually provided the result of those actions of Zamindari law, Hatao law. So that's not correct, because when we have a verb ing modifier as the introductory modifier, it typically provides additional information about the clause that follows, but it cannot provide information about the result of that clause. So this sentence is not, this modifier is not correct. Then let's read further. And formalized 300 years after Akbar first introduced the concept of land ownership in the last decade. Okay, so we have the same error with the last decade here as well. So this choice is also not correct. It has two modifier errors. Choice D, formalized in the last decade. Okay, so in the last decade error has been corrected here, and giving the overall economy a shot in the arm. Okay, so this is an issue here. I mean, the Zamindari Hatao law did not giving the overall economy a shot in the arm is not a characteristic of the Zamindari Hatao law. It was the effect of the two actions that happened when the Zamindari Hatao law was implemented. So again, we have a similar we have the same error as we had in choice C. Okay, so choice D is also incorrect. And also, something else with this, let's talk a bit more about this giving the overall economy a shot in the arm. So what it's saying is giving the overall economy a shot in the arm 300 years after Akbar first introduced the concept of land ownership. Now what this appears to say is that it's linking the effect, the overall effect of Zamindari Hatao law with the introduction of the concept of land ownership by Akbar 300 years back, and as such there is no linkage between those two things. The linkage is actually that 300 years after Akbar first introduced the concept of land ownership, Zamindari Hatao law was implemented, was formalized, and then the way that law, whatever happened with the implementation of that law that led to leading to the real estate boom and increasing the wealth of the average Indian, those two things ultimately then gave the overall economy a shot in the arm. So really speaking, these are the giving the overall economy a shot in the arm is not directly linked to the action of Akbar introducing the concept of land ownership. So this sentence illogically does that. So this sentence basically distorts the meaning of the original sentence. So as it stands, when you read the sentence in isolation, it would not appear to be incorrect, but if you put it in context with the original choice, with the original sentence, and if you put it in context with the meaning that the original sentence communicates, you would know that, okay, this sentence distorts the meaning of the original sentence. So choice D is incorrect. Let's review our last choice, choice E, leading to the real estate boom and increasing the wealth of an average Indian by 20%. Okay, so again, these two things are actually the effects of Zamindari Hatao law. So those two things cannot become the introductory modifier. So these two things are not correct. Akbar first introduced the concept of land ownership 300 years after Zamindari Hatao law was formalized in the last decade. Now this sentence actually is pretty weirdly written. Akbar first, so leading to the real estate boom and increasing the wealth of an average Indian, Akbar first introduced. So it appears to state that Akbar led to the real estate boom and Akbar increased the wealth of an average Indian by 20%, and that's not correct. Akbar did not lead to the real estate boom. So this sentence has a modifier error as well, and that brings us back to choice B. Choice B is the correct answer here.